You don't realize how fragile trust can be until it's shattered in front of you, piece by piece. It wasn't some big dramatic event that made me leave her. It wasn't a single lie or a single betrayal. It was the accumulation of all the little things, the quiet changes that no one warns you about until you're already too deep in it. I never thought I'd be the type of person to act on suspicion. I'm not a jealous guy. I don't go looking for trouble, and I certainly don't want to ruin something because of my own insecurities. But over time, those insecurities started growing into something more, something undeniable. She didn't always notice when I was staring at the back of her neck, the way her hair fell just slightly to the side, or the little twitch in her left hand when she was distracted. Little things. Things that seemed irrelevant until they weren't anymore. I had started working from home, which meant I was around more often. I spent my days staring at her, studying her habits, noticing how quickly she'd put her phone face down on the table when she thought I wasn't looking. How she'd disappear into the bathroom for longer than usual when she was on the phone. It's funny how you don't see these things when you're living life in the rush of the day-to-day, but when you have the time to notice, everything starts to stand out. The day it hit me was the day I found out she had been deleting her texts. I didn't even mean to snoop, but I had a feeling that just wouldn't go away. Call it instinct or paranoia, whatever you want, but I knew something was off. That afternoon, I saw her phone on the counter, and she was in the other room. She always left it unlocked. She didn't care. She trusted me. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I was just bored, my mind racing through thoughts I couldn't ignore. I picked it up, just to glance at the screen, something to break the monotony of my thoughts. But that glance turned into more. Her text history was gone. I opened it, and the messages from the last few days were no longer there. Only old ones remained. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't need to check anything else. I didn't need to read the specific messages. I knew right then that something was wrong. I wasn't angry, not yet. I wasn't even sure what I was feeling, but a deep, hollow pit had opened in my stomach. It was the kind of feeling you get when you know you've crossed a line, but you don't know where the line even was in the first place. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she deleted them by accident. Maybe it was just some weird glitch. But I couldn't ignore the gnawing sensation in the back of my mind. If nothing was wrong, then why had she felt the need to erase everything? It wasn't until later that night, when she came home and I asked her about it, that I saw the first crack in the mask. She looked at me like I'd caught her in something she didn't want to admit. The guilt was there, just a flicker, but it was enough. Oh, I must have deleted them by accident, she said with a forced smile, her voice a little too high-pitched. She was trying to laugh it off, but I could see it in her eyes. There was something there. I didn't push it. Not right away. But that feeling, the one I couldn't shake, it lingered like a shadow. And as the days went by, I started to pay even more attention to the small details. Her phone buzzing in the middle of the night, her sudden late nights out, the brief pauses in conversation when I asked her where she was. The cracks started spreading. But it wasn't until she went on that trip to visit her sister in New York, just a quick weekend getaway, that I realized what was really happening. She'd left on a Friday, with the usual excitement of a girl's trip. It didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary. She kissed me goodbye, told me she'd miss me, and went off with her suitcase. I didn't think much of it. But the moment she left, I felt a strange calm wash over me. It wasn't relief. It was like I was waiting for something, anything, to finally happen. I didn't have the courage to go snooping around while she was there. But I had a feeling I knew what I would find if I did. And deep down, I wasn't sure I wanted to. That Friday night, I stayed up late, watching TV. It was quiet, too quiet. No one to talk to. No one to fill the space. I was alone with my thoughts, and that's when it started. The urge to check her things. To see if I was wrong. I don't know why I decided to do it. I don't know what possessed me. But at some point during the night, I found myself standing in front of her vanity, staring at her makeup bag. I opened it slowly, just enough to peek inside. And there it was. The receipt. A hotel receipt from a place I knew she hadn't been to. I froze. My mind raced, trying to piece it together. She'd gone to visit her sister, but why was she staying at a hotel? A hotel I had never heard of? And why didn't she mention it? It wasn't until I dug a little deeper, just enough to confirm my fears, that I realized she had been lying about everything. She hadn't gone to New York to visit her sister. She'd gone to meet someone else. A man she'd been seeing behind my back. The weight of the discovery hit me like a freight train. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I wasn't ready to face the truth. Not like this. Not in this quiet, deceptive way. So, I did something I never thought I would do. I packed my things. Quietly, without a word. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I just left. And as I drove away from the life I thought I knew, I realized something. She had never once thought I would actually leave. And now, she'd find out just how wrong she was. The moment I left, everything felt surreal. It wasn't like a big dramatic exit or some kind of confrontation. It was just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after something irreversible happens. It's almost peaceful in a way, but I knew deep down that what I'd just done, leaving without a word, wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. I drove around aimlessly for a few hours. It was late, and the streets were mostly empty. I didn't have a plan, no destination. I just needed space away from the life I thought I had. I found myself parked on a street near the edge of town, looking at nothing in particular. The city lights flickered in the distance, but it felt like another world. Like I had stepped out of my old life and into a new, foreign one. The problem was, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I kept picturing Eliza's face, the look in her eyes when she caught me looking at her phone that night. The way she smiled, forced, tight, and told me she had deleted the text by accident. I couldn't shake that look. And I hated myself for not pressing harder, for not asking the questions that were burning in my mind. But the worst part was this. I wasn't mad. Not yet. I was confused. Confused and broken. By the time I made it to a small motel on the outskirts of the city, it was nearly dawn. I hadn't planned to check in anywhere, but there I was, paying for a room I didn't need. The clerk barely looked at me as I handed over the cash. I grabbed the key, and for the first time in a while, I felt completely alone. I wasn't angry at Eliza yet. I wasn't even sure I had the right to be. After all, she had every reason to be mad at me too, right? I had been distant lately, caught up in my own world. But the truth was, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that everything had changed, and I was only just beginning to see it. The next morning, I didn't feel any better. In fact, I felt worse. I kept replaying the details of the night she left. The small things that didn't make sense. Her phone, face down on the kitchen counter. The hotel receipt I had found. The way she acted when I asked about it. She had gone to New York, but not for her sister like she said. It was a lie. I knew it in my gut. I couldn't stop myself anymore. I pulled out my phone and sent her a message. Short. Simple. I know about the hotel, Eliza. I didn't expect a reply. But within minutes, my phone buzzed. Her response was swift. What are you talking about? I stared at the screen. She was acting like she didn't know what I was talking about. And yet, I knew she did. It was a game, one that I was now reluctantly part of. Don't play dumb, I typed back. I know you want to meet someone. Don't lie. There was a long pause before she finally replied. You don't understand. It's not what you think. The words stung, but they also felt like an invitation. An invitation to step deeper into this mess, to find out exactly what was going on, even if I wasn't ready to hear the answer. But in that moment, I couldn't stop. I had to know the truth, even if it broke me. The next text she sent was a confession, sort of. I didn't want you to find out like this. It's complicated, but we need to talk. I felt a mix of emotions. Betrayal, relief, the burning need for clarity. She was trying to spin it, trying to make it sound like there was some explanation. But I knew deep down that no explanation was going to make this right. I put my phone down and looked at the blank walls of the motel room. My life was spiraling, and I was powerless to stop it. The woman I thought I knew was hiding something big, and I was about to find out exactly what that was. The phone buzzed again. Another message from Eliza. I stared at it for a while, letting the words sink in. It's complicated. What did that even mean? Was she trying to make me feel sorry for her? Trying to soften the blow? I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I sat back on the bed, looking at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. I had been holding on to the idea that maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was all in my head. But now, there was no denying it. She had lied. And not just a little white lie, but something deep. Something that went beyond simple misunderstandings. She had been hiding something from me. The longer I waited, the more I realized that there was no going back now. I couldn't pretend that I didn't know. I couldn't just sit and wait for her to come back from her trip and act like everything was fine. Something had shifted. The trust was gone, and with it, everything I thought I knew about our relationship. I picked up my phone again and typed. You owe me the truth, Eliza. No more games. The message sent, but for a moment, I regretted it. What if she came clean? What if she apologized, said she made a mistake? Could I ever forgive her? Could we go back to what we were before all this? I didn't have the answers, and the uncertainty ate at me. She responded almost instantly. I'll explain everything when I get back. That was the line that broke me. I had waited long enough. I had given her the space to come clean, to own up to whatever was going on. But instead, she kept playing it cool, acting like she was in control of this situation. I was done waiting. I didn't want her version of the story. I didn't want to sit there listening to her weave her web of excuses. I wanted to know what was happening, what had been happening, without the sugar-coated versions. I had to do something, and I had to do it now. I stood up and grabbed my jacket. There was only one place I needed to be, and it wasn't here. I couldn't let her come back, look me in the eye, and try to act like nothing had happened. It was time for me to take control. I didn't give myself time to second-guess it. The minute I got up from the bed, grabbed my jacket, and walked out of that motel room, I knew I was going to do something I couldn't undo. My heart was pounding in my chest, my mind racing. I wasn't thinking clearly, but I didn't care. All I could think about was getting the answers I needed. I drove for what felt like hours, my mind a storm of thoughts, each one more chaotic than the last. I couldn't go back home. Not yet. Not until I understood what had really been going on. There were too many unanswered questions. Too many things she'd said that didn't add up. It was almost evening when I found myself in front of her office. She had been working late the past few weeks, always saying it was about some new project, some big pitch. But I didn't trust that anymore. I knew better. I parked across the street, the bright office lights reflecting off the glass. The building was empty now, save for a few cars in the lot. It looked ordinary, like any other office building in the city. But for me, it felt like the epicenter of everything that was falling apart. I had to know if she was hiding something here too. Maybe she had been sneaking around with this guy, Nash, right under my nose. I wasn't sure what I expected to find, but it had been gnawing at me, the idea that there was more to this whole thing than just some affair. I wasn't even sure if she was inside the building, but I had to check. I walked up to the door, and before I could talk myself out of it, I pushed it open. The silence inside was almost deafening. It was too quiet, the kind of quiet you only get when no one's around. I walked past the empty reception desk and down the corridor, the clicking of my shoes echoing through the hall. I wasn't trying to be discreet. I wasn't trying to hide my presence. I had come this far, and I wasn't about to back off now. I stopped in front of her office door. The sign with her name on it felt like a cruel joke. Eliza had built her career here, and I had always supported her. I was proud of what she'd achieved. But now, standing there, I felt a sickness in the pit of my stomach. I wasn't proud. I wasn't sure who she was anymore. I took a deep breath, pushing the door open slowly. Her office was dimly lit, the blinds drawn, and her desk was cluttered with papers and files. It was quiet, almost too quiet, like no one had been in here for hours. And then I saw it. On her desk, there was a folder, a thick folder, one that had clearly been opened recently. It wasn't like the rest of the documents she kept. This one had a name on it, Nash. I froze. The folder was real. The connection was real. Everything I had been questioning for the past few days started to fall into place. This was more than just a fling. This was something deeper, something she had been hiding, something planned. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to react. I wanted to scream, to tear the folder apart, but I didn't. Instead, I stood there, staring at it. And then it hit me. The realization that she had been lying to me for a lot longer than I could even begin to understand. I had come here for answers, but all I had were more questions. The truth was right in front of me, and yet it felt like I was the one who had been played all along. I picked up the folder, slowly. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed to know the whole truth. As I opened it, I found what I feared most: documents, notes, and even photos. Photos of her and Nash, smiling together, looking far too comfortable, far too intimate for this just to be a business relationship. I felt my breath catch in my throat. My hands started to feel numb. I didn't know if I should keep looking, but I did, and that's when I found it. A hotel reservation, the same one from the receipt I had found at home. I knew it was time to leave. Time to go. I wasn't going to confront her here. Not in this office. But I couldn't leave without something in my hands. I stuffed the folder back into my jacket and left as quietly as I came. The drive home was a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about the images, the truth, the lies. And most of all, I couldn't stop thinking about what I was going to do next. I couldn't breathe. The weight of the folder in my jacket felt like it was pulling me under, like it was going to crush me if I didn't do something about it. I didn't know if I was mad, heartbroken, or just lost. But all I knew was that I couldn't let her get away with this. Not without facing the consequences. The drive back home was long, but it gave me too much time to think. My mind was spinning, replaying the moments, the lies, everything that had led me here. Every little clue that I had dismissed before, suddenly crystal clear. I had been blind. She had been so careful, so calculated, and I had been none the wiser. When I pulled into the driveway, I just sat there for a moment, staring at the house. Our house. The house we had built together, the one we had filled with memories. The thought of it suddenly felt foreign. How many nights had I spent here, not knowing the truth? How many moments had I shared with her, thinking everything was fine, while she was out there, living a double life? I walked inside quietly. The silence hit me first. The kind of silence that settles when something is wrong, when there's a crack in the foundation and everything feels off. I walked into the living room and stood there for a minute, looking at the place that was supposed to be my safe haven. And then I saw it, her phone. It was lying on the coffee table, as if she'd forgotten it in her rush to leave. I could hear her voice in my head, that playful tone she used when she didn't want to admit she had been hiding something. But this time, I didn't have to guess. I had the truth right in front of me. And the truth was that I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't overreacting. I knew what I had to do next. I couldn't just wait for her to come home and try to explain. She had no more room for explanations. I needed to take control of this, to confront her in a way she'd never expect. I took the phone, turned it on, and scrolled through the messages. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Nash. Her texts were there, clear as day. The ones she thought I would never find. You can't keep hiding this, I whispered to myself. I set the phone down and looked at the clock. She would be home soon. I wasn't going to let her spin her lies anymore. The truth was already out, and I wasn't going to sit idly by while she tried to act like everything was fine. The door creaked open. She was home. The moment she stepped through the door, I knew everything was about to change. Eliza had that look. Relaxed, casual, like she was about to ask me how my day went, like we hadn't just crossed a line that neither of us could uncross. She tossed her keys onto the kitchen counter and looked over at me, a faint smile on her lips. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice too soft, too comfortable. "How's everything? Quiet around here without me, huh?" I didn't say anything right away. I couldn't. Not with the truth burning inside me. She walked closer, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. I could see her eyes flicking to the phone on the table, the one she hadn't noticed was on. I didn't want to make this any harder than it already was, but she left me no choice. The lies had built up for far too long. "I know about Nash," I said, my voice surprisingly calm, considering everything I was feeling. She froze, mid-step, her smile faltering for just a second before she recovered. It was a brief flicker, but I saw it. The panic, the sudden realization that the jig was up. "What do you mean?" she asked, her tone too innocent, too rehearsed. I didn't even flinch. I just walked over to the table, picked up her phone, and slid it across to her. "There's no point pretending anymore," I said, my voice sharper now. "You can read it for yourself." Eliza looked down at the phone, and I watched her face change as she scrolled through the messages. I could see the color drain from her face. The texts between her and Nash were as blatant as they were undeniable. Every word hit like a hammer. "I can't wait to see you again," one message read. "Everything is so much better when you're here with me." I could see her hands trembling as she tried to come up with something, anything to salvage the situation. But there was no excuse now, no way to smooth this over. "Eliza," I said, interrupting her before she could speak. "You've been lying to me. This wasn't some accident. This wasn't just a few bad choices. You've been seeing him behind my back. And I've been sitting here, waiting for the truth, thinking it was something else. But no, it's you. It's been you all along." She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, stopping her. "I don't need your excuses, Eliza. I've already seen everything I need to see. The only thing left now is for you to admit it." For a moment, there was silence. The tension between us was unbearable. I could hear my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. and I could see her trying to piece together a lie that would somehow make everything okay. But the truth was right there, in black and white. There was no way out of this for her. She began, but then stopped. Her eyes welled up with tears, but they didn't move me. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't crying because she regretted it. She was crying because she was cornered, and she didn't know how to fix what she had done. "You don't have to say anything," I said, my voice cold now. "I'm done listening to your lies." I could see her breaking down in front of me, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. Not anymore. Not after everything she had done. The trust was gone. The love, what I thought was love, was gone. And there was nothing left to salvage. "I'm leaving," I said, and for the first time, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. It wasn't anger that I felt. It was finality. The chapter was over, and there was no going back. She tried to speak again, but I didn't wait for her to finish. I grabbed my bag and turned toward the door. "You never thought I'd actually leave, did you?" I said over my shoulder, knowing the weight of those words would land on her like a ton of bricks. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. She knew, and I knew too. I thought it would feel different. I thought I would feel something, relief, anger, maybe even satisfaction, but as I stepped out the door, there was nothing. Just an overwhelming emptiness. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't sure if it was from the adrenaline or the sheer weight of what had just happened. The car ride was quiet. I didn't have a destination in mind. I was just driving. I didn't want to go back to the apartment. I couldn't face it. Not yet. Not after everything I had uncovered. For the first time, I realized how little I really knew about Eliza. How many years had I spent trusting her, believing in a life we were building together, only to have it come crashing down in a matter of hours. I wasn't angry anymore. I was empty, like I had just woken up from a bad dream. But I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I had thought was real was nothing more than a mirage. The night stretched on, and by the time I found myself parked at a small diner, the weight of everything began to sink in. I needed to think. I needed to process what had just happened, but my mind was still spinning. I glanced at my phone. It was her again. A new message. "I'm sorry. Please, just let me explain." I stared at the message for a moment, not sure how to respond. There was no explanation. There was no justification that would make any of this okay. But still, I couldn't help but wonder, how did it get to this point? What had changed? I sat there for a while, my fingers hovering over the screen, until I finally typed back one simple line. "It's too late for that." I put my phone down and leaned back in the booth, staring out the window at the empty streets. The life I knew had slipped away without me even realizing it. All the promises, all the quiet moments, all the love, gone. But the hardest part was yet to come. There was still one thing I had to do. One last confrontation, the one I dreaded the most. Days passed. The silence between Eliza and me stretched out like a heavy curtain. She tried to reach out. Texts, calls, even showing up at the diner where I had been hiding, hoping for a chance to explain. But I knew better now. I had already made my decision. It wasn't about the betrayal anymore. It wasn't about the lies. It was about reclaiming control of my life. I realized that the anger I had once felt wasn't the way forward. I didn't need to live in that toxic space, forever chained to the past. I needed to move on. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I lay awake, haunted by memories of us, of the person I thought she was. But each day, I grew a little stronger. I found solace in the small moments, sipping coffee on my own, walking without any baggage weighing me down, rediscovering who I was before I had been caught up in her world. One afternoon, as I was sitting in a park, reading a book I hadn't touched in months, something inside me clicked. The storm had passed, and it wasn't the anger or the hurt that had been the most painful. It was the fear of letting go, fear of being alone. But I wasn't alone. I had myself, and that was enough. The next time Eliza called, I picked up. I wasn't angry. I wasn't cold. I was just calm. "Eliza," I said, my voice steady, "I don't hate you. I don't want to fight. I just need to move on. I need to find my peace." There was a long silence on the other end, and then a quiet, "I understand." It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't some grand reconciliation or a dramatic confrontation, but it was a step forward. It was the moment I chose to let go of the past and embrace a future that was mine to shape. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew this much. I was no longer defined by someone else's choices. I had my own path now, one where I could breathe again. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. I smiled because I knew, no matter what, I was going to be okay. Maybe better than okay. Maybe even better than I'd ever been before.